everyone. Welcome to another episode of Charlotte Mason Coast to Coast, where we share practical tips on homeschooling the Charlotte Mason way. I'm Amy Snell, and I am from the East Coast, and I am co-host with Celeste Cruz, who lives out on the West Coast. Hi, Celeste.
Hello, Amy, and hello to everyone else. We're glad you've joined us as we consider the duties we have as Charlotte Mason educators and the delights that are in store for us when we embrace this philosophy of education with a thinking love. This week, we are going to talk about a special kind of notebook that we discussed at the retreat. It's called a mother's logbook, and this is something that Amy shared with us. She had some photos of the way that she uses it to record the work that they have done over the week and her reflections of how the week went as well. So I thought I would pick her brain a little bit today so we can get some more details about this record keeping method that fits so well with Mason's philosophy. Amy, first of all, what is a logbook?
Yes, well, as we've done research over the years and studied Mason's programs and the volumes, we have realized that Mason gave a lot of freedom to the families, the homeschooling families, in their day-to-day and week-to-week, that she would assign the chapters for the term to be read and then give a schedule, a timetable, and how that those could be fit into a week. But there wasn't this, daily lesson plan that was provided, even though there's, just decades of programs. And so what we saw references to were teachers keeping and mothers being recommended to keep a logbook, a log of the things that they did each day. And attached to one of the programs was an explanation on how to do the logbook. And it said that the mother should record the successful work done each day. And this was a real kind of key idea when we want to talk about staying positive with what we do, to record each day those things that we do accomplish. I remember in the past, I would have this list, and I would, if I did it, of what to do, and as I would do it, I would cross it out. And so then at the end, I'd have this, crossed out sheet, and it was a mess because then I was doing things in different orders, and there was just different colors. And so, now instead to have this log of what was accomplished each day has really been a fruitful practice.
What are some of the things that you prefer about keeping your records in this way instead of some of the other tools that we use as moms?
Yes, well, I think that the key thing is that as I talk with moms that are part of the our homeschool group or in consultation, so often we feel that something's wrong, or we can point to things that are not going well. We know we're behind in a book, and it's hard to pinpoint why at first. And the instructions that Mason gave for the logbook was to record any time that you did start a subject or the whole school day, but even a subject late, or any time that you went long, that you would record that. And then if you didn't move from one lesson spontaneously to the next, so if you would record and can see and look back like, okay, every time we go to do composer study, we all have to go hunt for the speaker, and all of these different things, right? We have a way of understanding ourselves. So I like that, yes, there's the two components. One, we record what we do well, so you have a positive sense of what's accomplished, as I already mentioned, but then there's this other sense of really being accountable to what goes on in the day-to-day. And honestly, all these years, Grace is in doing her 9th grade school year, and for so many years I didn't do this, and so now doing it has been eye-opening.
Mm-hmm. I can see how having that record would help you to brainstorm much more effectively than just having this general feeling of being behind in something, or something not going smoothly, but not being able to pinpoint why. Okay, so what does the logbook look like? How do you set yours up?
The more that over the last few years, as I've kept the logbook, I've now created this like one big notebook. I have it here that that's kind of that bullet journal style. So many of you know I really love keeping a bullet journal. So I just have done the same thing for homeschooling. So I have a bunch of different sections where I write out our program of work, and I have these great lists or collections, as people call them, for the bullet journal. So I have a recitation page where I can keep track of every recitation that the children have been able to learn and recite for a group. They keep track of their free reading list and the violin pieces that they've been able to learn. I have a section on our habits and what habit each child has picked to work on. And then I have a section in the back for each one of my children where I keep more of that mother's journal that it has many people have talked about, Nancy Kelly, and you shared with us at the Charlotte Mason retreat, our retreat this summer. So I know areas of growth that I see in them or needs that they may have. And then I have two two-page spreads for each week. And so I didn't do this at first, but basically I have the spread for the week, and I write down what we're going to be doing each. I can kind of hold it up here. And I'm homeschooling 4 kids, so that's why it's a bit complicated. But I put the notes, what supplies do I need? All of that goes down, so I know what it is I'm going to do. I have a plan, and I do that during that weekly pre-reading preparation time that we talked about in another video. And then what I have is another 2-page spread where it's just the reflection for that week. And it's like, I just noticed the things like, for each of my kids that, Grace did one long typed narration, another short, those kinds of things, ideas that I have, what went well. And then when I have that time with the kids for the weekly meeting, the things that they share, I record here. So that's kind of how it's worked, but really it's a new practice, and there's a bunch of us who are trying to use it, and it's neat to see how people take it in a way that works for their brain and the size of their family and how their homeschooling day works. And what we've all noted is that because it's a new habit, we kind of are struggling to think like, okay, does it make sense to fill in this logbook of what we do at the end of each lesson, at the end of each day, at that one time on the weekend when I'm setting up for the next week? And so because I've been trying to figure out, I'm not always consistent with it as perfectly as I imagine I may be one day. We can always hope for that one day of perfection, right? But all I know is that the more I do it, then I have a better sense of who we are and can make real changes as we go week to week. So it's really been a helpful practice for us.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like I'm trying to think of all the ways in which this would help your days and weeks run more smoothly. I mean, you've talked about several of them, but are there other ways that you've really seen a big benefit from this strategy?
Well, having a clear plan helps me that no matter how tired I am, or if I have a cold or whatever disruptions, I'm out late one night, I'm ready to go by having a plan. And then being able to look back at the logbook itself, I feel like I'm able to have, Mason talks about how this idea of having self-knowledge is one of the keys to being human, and what God asks of us is to know ourselves and who he's created us to be, what our vocation is. And so keeping a sense of what it is that we do each day, and I think it's an important part of that. And so in some ways it gives me confidence and momentum, and in other ways it helps me to be kind of honest with and not gloss over, oh, we start on time every day, or I don't know why we're behind in this because we do that, and to say, well, no, you skipped the recitation time, this many times over the term. And so then too, I think when we go to do exams, and then I can have the exams and then this logbook to sit down and reflect the two together are really helpful. So I would be interested to hear if more people have been doing this logbook or something like it. We see lots of references in the parent, not lots, but there are quite a few of the how in the parents' review of teachers and parents at the end of being encouraged at the end of the term to make a summary of their logbook overall and as part of that reflection process. And they're in that PNEU school teachers handbook that you have referred to in the past. There is just a great quote, and I think it sets up. So I thought we could end with this quote, if that would be good. It says, "The teacher is asked to give frank comments on her own performance, to comment on the programs and books used, and to set out in full topics on which advice is sought. The teacher should set out the degree of success achieved to date in teaching, any setbacks or inadequacies, where methods have succeeded or failed, whether teacher-pupil relations or mother-child relations in the schoolroom are satisfactory, comments on classroom organization, whether lesson preparation is adequate, etc. It is a unique opportunity to sit back and think about how the term has gone. The mere fact of writing down comments about teaching will in itself be beneficial." So that's what I have found for the logbook, that just somehow writing it down and not just keeping it in my head, I let it go in a way, and it's just clear that this would be part of every teacher's life, to have these problems, to wanted to be growing in our practices of using Mason's methods, to becoming better with our habits. That should be expected, and it makes it seem that it was clear that this whole process of growth was expected to be part of every teacher's life.
Yeah, and I find that last section so encouraging, because even though the PNEU mothers were able to submit these and teachers were able to turn these in and get feedback, what they really say is that it's the process of the teacher going through it that is the most beneficial part. And also all of us who don't have someone to mail and get feedback from, and it's that process, that self-reflection, that ends up being the most valuable part of that. Now, you talked about the logbook in the session on a mother's preparation, and there's some slides that we have of your logbook and more information that you went into. I shared about my weekly planning sheet, which is similar, but for the past several years, I've been using loose paper for this, but thanks to your inspiration, I changed them into 2-page-a-week spreads in a notebook. And I have really liked keeping them in that format, and the extra space has encouraged me to do a little bit. So I have one column on the side as well for reflection after weekly meeting, or things I want to bring to weekly meeting. And so built-in reflection on the page, in addition to like my planning notes, and also the recording of the work that we've done has been really helpful. So I'm really glad that you shared about it. We would love to hear if others decide to take on this recording tool, the benefits that you've seen, and the little experiment that you're doing in your home of how it will work for you. Go ahead and let us know in the comments. If you're new, be sure to subscribe. And until next time, we wish you calm peace and cheerful brightness.